I mean, there's a part of me, and people aren't going to like this, and I don't care. There's a part of me, mean-spirited karma, suggests they've got what they deserve in the end, and I'm sure that's going to cause outrage amongst the Leicester fans. But the fact of the matter is, I don't care. The fact that you're hearing more things that you like, you're now prepared to give people the breadcrumb trail to the fact that it's going to lead to you staying in the gingerbread house.
You still feel that if you were bully, you'd do the self-same thing?
If he has breached the governance which he signed up to, then he'll reap the whirlwind of that.
Derogatory chants at Phil Foden's mother.
It's just a low resolution, but they're low resolution thinkers anyway. Identify them and ban them from football stadiums.
Last night, one match in the Premier League, and it was Newcastle, Simon, who swept past a very sorry Leicester City and edged back towards the Champions League. Simon, where do you stand on this? We'll hear from Eddie in a second. Eddie Howe, of course, ecstatic about another 3 points. But ending a 70-year trophy wait or getting Newcastle back to Europe's top table amidst a mid-order rise, what do you think would be Eddie's standout achievement from this season?
Winning the League Cup, I suspect, because it banishes the demons that have been so much around. But they can have both. They can have both. They've got the momentum to get both.
Yeah.
They've been in a rich vein of form. Whether the League Cup gives them that extra pep in their step, the extra confidence, or the monkey off their back, or whatever you want to say, they've got good players. And so with that in mind, they've got a good coach. You know, over the years, my attitude towards Eddie Howe has changed, and rightly so. And of course, it culminated in me actually spending some time with him. And I think he's a thoroughly decent fellow and deserves all the successes he's going to get.
Yeah.
But I think they can have both. So I think if they can compound the League Cup win with an appearance in the Champions League, they'll be better equipped for it next year than they were the first time round, because they're going into a new format, and they've seen the beneficiaries of that have been other clubs that would have not necessarily thrived the way that they did if that format had been the same one that Newcastle competed in. So
Absolutely.
I think it will be a real stepping stone. I still maintain the view that Eddie Howe won't carry them to the Premier League. I hope he does, because I'm not suggesting that this is a diminishing aspect. The opportunity
to winning the Premier League.
Well, that's
winning the Champions League.
I don't think that the Saudi Investment Fund, which owns it, which is a sovereign state fund, which is the nation state, which owns Newcastle, despite all the subterfuge, bought Newcastle to win the League Cup. They bought it, and you saw the biggest reveal in the emotional outburst from Amanda Staveley, which was, we've lost this League Cup final, but we will be back. We'll win this cup. We'll win the FA Cup. We'll win the Premier League. We'll go to the Champions League. So to do that, they're going to have either a significant change in the rules, or allow Eddie to develop this football club over a 5, 6, 7 year period. And I'm not sure anybody gets that time in football anymore.
No. Sure thing. Very one-sided affair last night at Leicester, and Newcastle won it, and won it convincingly. And now, the race towards a Champions League qualification. Newcastle are in it, very much in it. This was Eddie.
I think it's important, but the club will exist if we don't get there. But I think there's a real desire from everyone internally, players most importantly, to try and get there. We've got some really tough fixtures to come. The next week will be pivotal for us. 3 games in 6 days against 3 tough opponents. So that's going to be a big week. And we certainly, I think, off reflection of today and Brentford, we're going to need to play better than we have in those games if we want to win the matches coming up.
You see, I like that. It was so one-sided, the whole affair, Simon. But at the end of it all, Eddie never gives it, "Yeah, I'm totally happy." And I like that.
Well, that is
There's more to come. There's more to come.
But that is the winning mentality. That's the nature of ambition. If you stop and look around, sometimes people say you've got to smell the coffee, or watch the world go by. But in the nature of ambition, you've got to keep pushing forwards. You've got to keep evolving, got to keep moving forward, because there's nothing you can't learn, and there's no ultimate outcome. You have to keep progressing. Certainly as a club like Newcastle, who are trying to eat up the ground like some sort of Pac-Man mentality of eating up the opposition and getting to the point where they are now established and stabilised in the Champions League, so they can get those revenues that can give them the opportunity to bridge the gap between the 350 million that they will generate and the 500 million that a Tottenham will generate, and a 600 million that the Manchester Uniteds, and a 700 million that the Man Cities all have in their back pocket right now, alongside Arsenal and their turnovers, that give them an opportunity to buy bigger, have bigger wages, and keep on evolving. And that's the place that Newcastle have got to get to. And that's why he has to have that look. Because we also know that you give people comfort, they'll be comfortable.
Sure. Sure. It's a nasty one, but I'm going to ask it. Ivan Juric at Southampton, now gone. He left yesterday. 2 wins in 16, 13 defeats. Ruud van Nistelrooy, Newcastle's opponents last night, Leicester. 3 wins in 20, 16 defeats. Of the two of them, is it nip and tuck for the worst managerial appointment of the season?
No, I think they can both have that, but for different reasons. I think that Ruud van Nistelrooy was a strange appointment, only gotten and given because of the 3 or 4 games he managed at Manchester United, which was like picking up something that was so broken because of the toxicity around Ten Hag, media base, fan base, whatever else, that there was always going to be a bump when a legend came in, and that shouldn't have been a blueprint for being given a job. I know that we spoke to the Dutch journalist that we both like, who was very complimentary about Van Nistelrooy and what he's likely to achieve, but the statistics are glaring for Ruud. From goals conceded to goals scored to points achieved, everything has been decimated. He's half the amount of goals scored per game that they were getting under the previous manager, which is perplexing given the fact he's a forward. He's doubled the game, or certainly given it a 50% ratio on the amount of goals that they've got. Every statistic, points have gone from a point a game to a half a point a game. But the Juric appointment to me just made there seemed to be some feeling of sense around the reasons why Van Nistelrooy might get this little bump out of them because of the culture of the individual. But Juric, to me, I felt the only reason this fella could have got a job is because he's from a similar part of the world as the owner.
As Dragon Solak. You said that from the word go, to be fair to you. So, we know that Juric is not going to head to the Championship with Southampton. Leicester will be heading to the Championship. Should they head there with Van Nistelrooy?
For what reason? For either of them. Juric has done them a favour. I suspect the fact that he had a contract which detailed he could go if they got relegated gives you all the insight you need to have. Because that was based upon an exit strategy. Maybe it was both sides, so maybe that's unfair. But he was not creating a culture at Southampton that vaguely resembled anything progressive. Van Nistelrooy the same. I can't see an argument as to what you'd be gaining, even though you've got behind the scenes gives you more insight. We see the Saturday afternoon. We don't see anything else, so we don't know if there's any progress anywhere else or there's good reasons why there's such struggles. But it's very difficult to suggest that either one of them is worth retaining. You can't decimate. Van Nistelrooy was brought in to perhaps save Leicester. There's a part of me, and people aren't going to like this, and I don't care. There's a part of me that suggests that Leicester should have already been consequence anyway, because they got around a 6-point penalty they shouldn't have gotten around. So there's part of me, mean-spirited karma, suggests they've got what they deserve in the end, and I'm sure that's going to cause outrage amongst the Leicester fans. But the fact of the matter is, I don't care. The fact of the matter is that neither one of those individuals did anything to change the direction of travel. They made it worse. So how can that be an argument to say, well, actually, that looks like the way forward?
But Simon, you're right. They made it worse. So was it not a case of, and I know it's easy with hindsight, better the devil you know, was it not a case that maybe Southampton should have stuck with Russell Martin? Is it not a case that Leicester should have stuck with Steve Cooper?
Well, it's an interesting one, because I think often as a manager that brings a club up from the Championship, you are more susceptible to losing your job quicker, because there's this dynamic that you haven't managed in the Premier League, perhaps, and ultimately you were good enough to get us out of the Championship, but you haven't got the chops to keep us in the Premier League. I also think there's certain attitudes that Russell Martin exhibited that might have been a little bit intransigent towards his owner and what his owner might have been suggesting. Now, with Steve Cooper, I think there's a different dynamic. I think the fans didn't want him, didn't fancy him, and I think he was already always pushing water uphill to some extent.
Sure.
And there's been this backdrop of Leicester being quite critical of their managers over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 appointments, with maybe a slight period of time with Brendan where there wasn't. But they were very critical of a lot of the appointments over the years and the style of football. And Cooper was caught in that trap. So the fans were in part a great degree towards the reasons why the lever on the exit door was pushed on.
How much longer can Lucas Paqueta remain in limbo? Paqueta, however you like to pronounce it. Of course, we know what's going on with him. The issue of integrity at the heart of his case. Is it an uncomfortable situation? Paqueta spot-fixing hearing has now been adjourned until the summer, meaning he is free to see out the season with West Ham. But where does that sit with you? Should he be allowed to carry on playing? And many of you will probably say, yes, he should, because are you not innocent until proven guilty? Alex Crook, talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, the man who broke the news yesterday that Ivan Juric was out of Southampton, joins us live this morning. Alex, Paqueta, how much longer should he be remaining in limbo here? What's the latest on this?
Well, I think the word frustration is the one that is being banded around to me. Frustration at just how long this is taking. As you mentioned there, our understanding is that the case was scheduled to last for 3 weeks. The 3 weeks have elapsed and it's been adjourned now until the summer. I think because the lawyers involved couldn't commit to continuing until June. We know that the case is based around 4 specific yellow cards. The accusation from the FA is that Paqueta picked up those bookings on purpose to try and influence betting markets. I think when I spoke to you last week, I told you one of the suspect bets was as little as £7, one as much as £30, which still seems relatively small fry if you're going to take that kind of risk. If you're Lucas Paqueta, his camp and West Ham are confident of a positive outcome. But the longer this limps on, the more it's going to affect the player's career. Because if you remember, Jim and Son, when these allegations first surfaced, it was a done deal that Lucas Paqueta was off to Manchester City. £80 million fee had been agreed. He was obviously going to get himself a hefty pay rise as well. City pulled out of that deal when Paqueta was accused of wrongdoing. City obviously are looking to strengthen in the summer. It's been suggested to me that once again Paqueta could be on their radar. But if this drags on too long, they're clearly going to look at other targets. I think from an integrity point of view, the Premier League might be quite happy that the ban has not been enforced now, because obviously Paqueta, if there is to be a ban, because Paqueta has been playing, therefore he's been influencing games, not so much from a West Ham perspective. They have nothing to play for.
Yeah.
It just looks as they've got to come. They've still got to play Liverpool, for example, in the next few weeks. So it's not beyond the realms that he has a say in the title race. And I think if you ban a player 6 games before the end of the season, then there would be an integrity issue.
What's your take on it, Sam? Paqueta's spot fixing hearing, as Alex says, now adjourned until the summer. The reason being, owing to the lawyer's other commitments, it's understood the hearing will not resume until June. The lawyers are too busy.
Well, I'm assuming his lawyers are too busy. Alex, is that correct? His lawyers?
Yes, that's I believe to be the case.
Well, that's ludicrous, isn't it? I mean, ultimately, I find that relatively ludicrous, because you should have a timeline that these things. We've tried to manage the affairs of football clubs, detailing their accounts so that windows of time can be managed in, so that consequences can be meted out in real time. Here we have a situation where a very significant charge has been levied against the player. I'm not really interested in Man City's opportunity to buy him. If there's an integrity issue, it has to be managed very carefully and with great thoroughness. And if you're going to bring charges of this nature, I would assume you have a very, very good reason to bring them, and not just on a fishing expedition. The fact that the player's representation isn't available is almost perplexing, and I'm not entirely sure that. I mean, the FA can't do much about it, because if they do and say, well, you have to use different representation, they'll claim prejudice. They'll claim that they're being disadvantaged by the nature of having to change counsel. But there should have been a governance around this, which said we brought these charges this time at this date, and we need to have them manifestly an outcome manifest itself in this window of time. It's not beyond the wit of man. I know how long it takes to get things into court. What's happening within football now is the lawyers are involved. It's a cottage industry now. There's more money being made. If you're going to do anything in football, set up a legal firm. You'll make more money from it than anything else, because the opportunities are there. And now you've got a situation where we're now going into the close season for a judgment to potentially be forthcoming on the basis of something that should be answerable as quickly as possible. And again, go back to the point, which is, how can it be that lawyers that you chose to engage now can't make themselves available?
Well, this is it, Simon. It is all very. It leaves you with a feeling of uneasiness, I find, that, Ali. When you look at it and you boil it down, Paqueta strongly denies any wrongdoing. The FA are seeking a lifetime ban. Paqueta continues to play. I mean, honestly, no wonder football fans are scratching their head about the way football is run these days.
Well, we had a similar situation, didn't we, with Ivan Toney? Obviously, the accusations levelled against him weren't quite as serious, but he was able to play all the time. He was accused of betting on matches, which, of course, players can't do, and there was of unrest about how long that took to reach fruition. And I think it's the same here. But my personal opinion, and maybe it's an issue with the justice system in this country as opposed to FA specific, but the whole matter has taken too long. From when those accusations were first levelled, when he was charged, and here we are still waiting for a verdict, I think it would have been in everybody's interest to get this matter cleared up a lot quicker.
Yeah. Alex, while we still have you, 3 weeks, is it a long time in football in terms of football negotiations? It would appear it is. 3 weeks ago, Van Dijk told reporters up at Liverpool Liverpool or whatever it was, he had, quotes, no idea where he'd be playing his football next season. Now at the weekend, the same Virgil van Dijk, when asked by a reporter, any progress? Yeah, there's progress. Yeah. He was asked whether the progress meant he'd be remaining at the club. He said, I don't know, we'll see. It's nudging along, isn't it?
I think so. As we reported last week, there seems to be a confidence and optimism at Liverpool that both Van Dijk and Salah will sign their deals. This is not dissimilar to when I had my spat with Martin Keown after Salah came out. I think it was after Liverpool had beaten Southampton and said there's no offer on the table. Clearly, there have been negotiations that have been going on with both players' agents for a long time now. So I think, again, Van Dijk was maybe playing a bit of brinkmanship there. These things are complicated, not least because the players' age, because their wage demands, they know how important they are to Liverpool. And it sets a precedent as well, because we're talking about three big-name players this summer reaching the end of their contracts in Trent Alexander-Arnold and Van Dijk and Salah. They're going to have a similar situation, Liverpool, with Konate and Alisson on the horizon. So, obviously, whatever they agree with Van Dijk and Salah, players talk about wages and what their contract is worth, that's going to have an impact on negotiation with those two players as well.
It's been an unusual set of circumstances, hasn't it, with these three?
Yeah, but Alex and I have sung the same song, which is ridiculous to believe that the players' representation haven't had contact or conversations. They've completely been stonewalled. What you're hearing now, probably, is the players are getting more of what they want. Rather than we don't know anything and we've not heard anything and we're not hearing it, you're now beginning to hear more things that you like. So that fact that you're hearing more things that you like, you're now prepared to give people the breadcrumb trail to the fact that it's going to lead to you staying in the gingerbread house, i.e. Liverpool.
The gingerbread house. I like that. Now, last month, Stephen, the Chelsea Supporters Trust called on the Premier League to investigate the connection between the club co-owner Todd Boehly and Vivid Seats, this American website that allows users based outside the UK to buy and sell tickets, often at highly inflated prices. Now, Vivid Seats, it's now a much discussed ticketing website classed as unauthorised by the Premier League. And what we did know was that the club's co-owner, Boehly, was an investor and director in it. We know more now, do we not, Stefan, in terms of Boehly's involvement? Because Chelsea, we now find out, have received a payment of 93,000 quid from Vivid Seats. What does it tell us? Does that tell us more? That Todd Boehly is a bit more hands-on than we thought he might be?
Well, there's two parts. First of all, we don't know how the period for the 93,000. It could have been 1 month before June of 2024. I don't know whether it was running the whole of last season, but they disclosed in their accounts that they released that Todd Boehly is a related party of Vivid, and therefore they have to detail the revenues that were associated with Vivid that came into Chelsea. So we now know that it was £93,000, and what we now know is that Todd Boehly was not just a passive shareholder of Vivid, he must have at very least significant control of Vivid. Okay, so significant influence or control of Vivid. So he's clearly, he's deeply involved in it. Whether that makes a difference or not to the moral argument.
Just out of curiosity, why do we know that?
Because they've disclosed it in their accounts.
That
he's a related party.
Right, but that
Chelsea and Vivid are related, so they must be related via him.
Because they show directorship.
No, it won't just be the directorship. It must be something a bit more than a directorship. Just because you're on the board of two different companies doesn't necessarily make them related.
Even though, Simon, some of the Chelsea fans are kicking off about it, about Boehly's involvement, which is now more than we actually thought it was, you still feel that if you were Boehly, you'd do the self-same thing?
Yeah, I would. If I was able to do it. I mean, there's an argument about authorisation, there's an argument about morality. And the argument about morality was the question that we were debating.
Right.
The authorisation side of things, if he has breached the governance which he's signed up to, then he'll reap the whirlwind of that, whatever that may not be. And quite frankly, up until this date, he hasn't really been the victim of much governance right now, has he? Despite all the protestations that he's going to be.
No.
So I would assume that there is an ability to do what he's doing. Now, if there isn't an ability to do what he's doing, then he'll get some form of sanction, which I'm sure will give him sleepless nights. The reality of it is about the moral argument. Should a football club be able to sell its tickets at inflated prices and be the beneficiary of inflated income? Well, I'd argue that PSR is actually one of the reasons why people are doing this sort of stuff. And the need to generate more revenue inside football clubs, however small it might be, is a directly relatable concept or consequence of PSR introducing governance into football.
And Chelsea need 93 grand, do they?
Well, do they need to charge for an extra a couple of quid for a hamburger or a hot dog? It's all relevant, isn't it? Some people suggest you look after the pounds, the pennies, the pounds will take care of themselves.
Do you think the better look, and this is where we're going to, the better look for Chelsea and Bowley here is it Todd Bowley, and I'm sure he's going to pay attention to this, steps away from Vivid Seats, Stefan?
Well, I suspect it's just easier for Chelsea to find another ticket vendor that's not connected to him. Like every other club does. I mean, at the end of the day, there are multiple third-party ticket vendors operating within the Premier League clubs. Some are authorised and some are not. I mean, it is not a big deal at £93,000, and he can't be that shy of it, given that it's in the accounts. He must have always known that it was going to appear in the accounts. So I doubt it's that big a deal, but the fact remains we now know that there is a connection of sufficient gravitas in that connection, his influence in Vivid, that it needs to be disclosed in the accounts. That's all we've really learned.
So the connection will obviously, I'm assuming, benefits Liverpool because they sell tickets through his ticket agency as well.
Yeah, I mean, some of
it's
the tickets.
It's not unique. The affront from the Chelsea fans is that he is head cook and bottle washer. He is involved in Chelsea and he's involved in Vivid, but he's not involved in Liverpool. Yet Liverpool are selling their tickets through Vivid. Or Liverpool tickets are being bought through, as are other clubs.
And the breach is probably not Bowley's breach anyway. I mean, the breach will either be Chelsea Football Club's or Vivid's breach.
Absolutely.
It won't be Bowley's breach.
Yeah. The race is on for the signature of Kevin De Bruyne at Manchester City. We were on Friday when the news came on that De Bruyne, on the eve of his final Manchester derby, would be leaving City at the end of the season. And Pep Guardiola has actually spoken about Kevin leaving City.
I think I've been involved in, I read today or yesterday, 280 goals in terms of goals and assists in the Premier League. So the Premier League is one of the greatest midfielders I ever play in this country, and I think that this club is no doubt about. Always when you say is the greatest, not the greatest, so it's like always have to be careful for respect for the, players who play main roles and incredible players that play for the last, 20, 30 years in this club, but come on. There's no doubt he's one of the greatest, for sure, because of his consistency, except the last year.
Yep, he is one of the greatest of that, there is no doubt. But now there's a bit of a debate as to where he'll end up. Will it be the Saudi Pro League? Will it be the MLS? And this is where it's curious in a financial sense, Stefan, because the Saudi Pro League and the MLS have both registered interest. De Bruyne earns about 400 grand a week with City, although he knows that if he moves to the MLS, he'll have to take a pay cut. Saudi Arabia, on the other hand, have told De Bruyne that they're willing to increase his salary even though he turns 34 in June. What a wonderful situation, Kevin, to be in. But when it comes down to it, who's made the bigger splash and who's maintained it here, Stefan? Where do you think his head will be tilted?
Most players are earning a lot less than they are in the Premier League. No player at San Diego earns anywhere near £400,000 a week. So even Suarez is on about $1 million a year. So
right.
It is a completely different ball game. So if he wants money, he's got to go to Saudi. If he just wants lifestyle, then I suspect he'll go to Miami.
Depends what they do with him. And obviously the Messi deal was a unique deal underpinned by Apple as well. There are players out in America that are getting paid decent money. He would probably be one of them. But the scale of money that he can get in America, unless they relax the governance over what they can and can't spend on certain players and their player squad value, and they can make it accept, they can pay him within reason what he wants. They could pay him the same money as they're paying Messi. Depends upon the franchise.
Well, Messi is a coach designated player, as is Busquets, as is Alba, within Inter Miami squad, meaning that they are paid by the club's owners, including Beckham. Maybe Kevin could join that stable.
I'm sure Beckham's not paying anything, but the point of Beckham was the one that got the franchise. Everyone else has put the money in. But the fact of the matter is that Messi was a unique deal for unique reasons. It's created a different dynamic, having spent some time over there with Inter Miami and looking at all the different structures of the MLS football clubs and what they want to do. But he'll go to Saudi because that's where the money is.
But the problem is it hasn't worked. I mean, the Apple deal with Messi, in terms of the number, the viewers and the subscriptions that have been sold on the back of Messi at Miami, look, it's been it's been great for the polish of the league, but in terms of selling subscriptions, it has failed. So it's unlikely they're going to do a similar deal.
That's an exercise in connectivity and also in accessibility that people are complaining about, as much about the quality of the product. I mean, they've got a 10-year deal. Whether it's worked or it hasn't worked, Apple signed a 10-year deal currently with the MLS.
But he's not going to play for 10 years, is he?
No, he's not. No, he's not.
And you weren't impressed by the MLS when you came back recently?
No, the standard's low, but so is the standard in Saudi.
Yeah.
We're not talking about a standard issue. We're talking about a money issue here.
Yeah.
Both leagues are substandard to what he has ever played in, and way beneath the level that he should be playing in.
So when it comes down to figures, the only figure that Kevin's got to think about is factor 50 for Saudi Arabia. Because it is hot.
It wouldn't surprise me if he's not motivated by the riches of 2 years in Saudi Arabia. I mean, that wouldn't be a massive shock.
Yeah,
he's earned pretty well at City. Yeah. Simon thinks he definitely will want to take the riches.
Listen, he was one of the people that was very, very vocal during the COVID period and has been very vocal in his own contract. That boy knows his own worth, and he makes sure he gets his own worth, and he's captain of his own ship. And I'd be very surprised that he doesn't end up where he can get the best economic return.
We're all for freedom of speech in this country. Of course we are. Freedom of expression within a football stadium. Is it worth fighting for? It would seem it is. Let me put some meat in the bones of this. The Norwegian club Brann have just won a landmark freedom of expression case via the Court of Arbitration for Sport, CAS, to you and me, which has ruled that UEFA were wrong to punish them when their fans started singing UEFA Mafia and displayed banners with the same message at games. UEFA took none too kindly to what they heard and saw, and UEFA fined Brann on 2 separate occasions in 2024 with a third case pending. They argued that the incidents were a breach of its regulations, which make clubs responsible for, quotes, offensive statements of a provocative nature from the stands. Brann, for their part, said, no, the message UEFA Mafia is humorous and power critical, and it's well within the limits of freedom of expression. And now, what do you know? CAS have backed that up. Have CAS opened the door to a dangerous, if you can call it dangerous, challenging of authority from clubs when it comes to what's acceptable in terms of political and societal messaging inside a stadium?
But that's neither. That's questioning authority. And I'm very motivated by not having football used for messages that are societal based. But this is a football related scenario. And freedom of speech, no one's got freedom of speech, because freedom of speech doesn't necessarily mean you don't have a consequence for what you're saying. You can't run into a theatre and shout fire. You can't shout racism and abusive observations at people without a consequence. So freedom of speech is an interesting dynamic because it doesn't come without a consequence. In the instance, I mean, it's interesting that a football club has decided to uphold the rights of its fans rather than vilify them, which is what Rangers did. And the reasons why I picked up Rangers, because I don't agree with the classification of what was said. I don't believe it was racist and discriminatory.
Well, what did they say? Their banner said, keep woke foreign ideologies out, defend Europe.
Which some people would say, given some of the ideologies around the world, is not necessarily a bad message.
Well, they get fined €30,000.
But that's because it was classified as racist and discriminatory. So the classification, and they can't describe. Now, UEFA can't classify UEFA Mafia as racist and discriminatory. They might just say it's discriminatory against their power, but the bottom line is that they've been challenged through the legal system, and however the case was framed, the case was upheld. Now, whether we are allowing people to hide behind the veneer of freedom of speech is a different discussion entirely, because I don't think people are immune from consequence. You can't just say what you want when you want. There are governance and there are requirements of people to behave in a fashion that isn't abusive. So if you start shouting racial abuse at somebody, you will get arrested. You will get brought forward under a hate crime. If you start questioning authority, well, I don't like monopolies. I don't like autocracies, which is what UEFA are. They create their homework, they mark their homework, they define what goes on in football. They didn't like the challenge. They hid behind the veneer of meritocracy around the European Super League. What was really happening was they were being challenged, and the mistake that the European Super League made was to take away the meritocracy. So really and truly, why should UEFA not be challenged? Why should the governing bodies, why should FIFA, whose organisation has been anything but transparent, which we've had massive claims for concerns about over the years, if you don't challenge these people, then do they just continue to get away with the things they get away with?
Should there be a challenge of sorts, Simon, after what we heard at Old Trafford at the weekend? I mean, there's a dangerous blurring of lines here with freedom of speech and football tribalism. Manchester United fans, a section of them, aiming derogatory chants at Phil Foden's mother.
It's just unpalatable, isn't it? I mean, there is an element of football fans that behave in a certain way. The best thing to do with them is...
Yeah, but you said freedom of speech doesn't come without consequence.
Yeah, and I'm about to say what the consequence should be.
Yeah, but they'll get off with it.
I'm about to say what the consequence should be. Identify them and ban them from football stadiums.
On CCTV, what? Identify them?
However you do it.
How do you do it when there's hundreds of them, even thousands?
Well, you find the very best version of the outcome that you can achieve, and you hope that it sends out a message to their colleagues. I wouldn't say peers, because I don't think they're particularly high on the pecking order of any society. If you want to behave like that, wherever you think of somebody, targeting their family and calling their family abusive names, it's just a low resolution. But they're low resolution thinkers anyway. And, you know, people say, "Oh, well, why do they do it?" How in God's name do I know why they do it? I can't relate to their thinking. So if I could relate to their thinking, I'd be more concerned. The fact of the matter is that you can't stop people from saying unkind things. You can try and close down the channels in which people can speak, so you can confine it into, because if you don't like something, but if you move from the territory of saying, well, I don't like that, to effectively saying whatever I don't like is now something that people can't say, you have to be careful how you achieve it.
I agree,
because some people say calling somebody something is abusive, and other people say it's probably fair comment. In this instance, it's not fair comment, it's just abusive. And there's no need for it. It's not
disgusting. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, Manchester City say they were shocked and disgusted by the number of people who were chanting about Foden's mum, and how many times it happened during the game.
I don't know. Did they count them? I mean, the fact of the matter is, if they know how many the number of the people, then they can make a complaint, and Man United can find out who they were, identify them by seat and location, start to use CCTV, and start to consequence these people.
That's time-consuming, Simon.
So what?
My God, you imagine how much time that would take.
Well, that is if you
from beginning to end.
Well, if you
consequence them by what? Knocking the door and saying you're banned. We saw what you did.
Yeah, ban them. Ban them. You take them out of society. In this instance, the football society. You remove them from the spaces where this abuse finds itself, and finds itself landing on a territory that's been encouraged over the years. It's only in recent times that we've suddenly decided, out of the clear blue sky, that we don't want people running on the field anymore, and we don't want tragedy chances. Yeah. We don't think that the 1958 Munich plane crash is something funny for other football fans to sing. We don't think singing about Heysel or singing about Hillsborough is... But now we've decided to step up about it. What you're really going to do, you're going to try and remove these people from the games by consequencing the individuals, so that the majority that are amongst them no longer do it.
As you speak, Simon, I'm looking at the messages coming in. Well said there, Stuart. I'm a big United fan. Those chants at the weekend were absolutely moronic, and they were. And those who indulged in them should be thoroughly ashamed of themselves. I'm sure you thought it was a laugh at the time. Maybe you still do. Well, it wasn't funny, not even in the slightest.
It's no different with respect to what Victoria Beckham endured for years.
Sure.
And people weren't so offended by that.
No, I agree.
I think we have to be careful what we're offended by, but there's no tolerance. There should be no tolerance of it. But more to the point, Phil Foden should listen to 95% of the so-called football family that condemn 99% that would condemn this.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's where he should gain some solace from.
What it is, though, Simon, it's now 4 without victory for them. They've won only 3 of Graham Potter's 12 matches in charge. So, no matter the decision and what hinged on that to bring him in, he hasn't exactly given them the managerial bounce that many West Ham fans would have hoped that he would have done. Are you still of the opinion that the jury's out on Potter? He's still got to prove himself?
Well, I think that he's obviously a very capable manager, but I think his reputation is bigger than his deeds. I mean, he built a decent side at Brighton that finished 16th and 15th and then 9th under his time, and then De Zerbi took it on a different level. And as much as I had my issues with De Zerbi's behaviour towards the end, where I thought he was ungrateful and disrespectful to his owner after they got beaten, I think Roma.
Yeah.
I mean, Potter, I think, got found out a little bit at Chelsea, and maybe some people would suggest that no one wouldn't have got found out in that environment because it was a chaotic environment that Todd Bowley was presiding over, after the departure of Tuchel. And he's played around for the last 2 years, whether that's because of the financial benefits of doing so in terms of his compensation deal for being sacked from Chelsea, or whether it's because he didn't fancy the opportunities that come up. He's landed at West Ham. I think it's probably unfair to judge him in isolation over these 12 games, and better to judge him when he has a pre-season with his squad and shapes it, changes it, trades players and builds a team that's more of his liking. I'm assuming he would have quite liked the team, otherwise he wouldn't have taken the job in the first place. But he hasn't set it on fire, and that may well be because the legacy of Julian Lopetegui wasn't that great, and what he had created there had produced its own challenges. But no, I don't sit there and ever understood why he got the Chelsea job. With respect to him, I didn't understand that. I didn't understand the thinking behind it. I didn't also particularly admire some of his, I thought, rather weak interviews that he did when the pressure was really being turned up on him at Chelsea, because that's when you really see who comes out fighting.
Do you think it's too early to be judging him at West Ham?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think West Ham is an easy nut to crack.
Yeah.
I don't think Sullivan's an easy person to work alongside. I don't think the West Ham fans particularly like David Sullivan. And so I don't think they give anyone that's associated with Sullivan a lot of latitude. I mean, you look at the achievements of David Moyes, 7th, 9th, and the season where they finished, I think, 14th, which wasn't that impressive post their European Conference win.
Yeah.
I think that, you can look at it, but the argument was about style of football. David made his bed and he laid in it. He decided to play a brand of football the West Ham fans didn't appreciate. So he lost, eventually they just wound their relationship down, so they all were fed up with one another, weren't they?
Yeah, sure.
He was fed up with West Ham, they were fed up with him.
You see, it happens with West Ham, and I mean this is exactly what happens. A flood of messages start coming in when we talk about a club like West Ham, because many of the fans relate to some of the problems that they perceive to be going on, both on and off the field, and they want to comment on them. And there is one, Jim Simon, I'm a West Ham fan, I genuinely fear for his next year. I cannot see any improvement on style. Potter constantly gets the lineup wrong. Mr. Sullivan has control of the transfers. We cannot go in the right direction as long as this persists. Many West Ham fans get in touch, Simon, saying it's not the right mix. It's not the right mixture to get success, which is what they all strive for. They don't think that the Sullivan Potter mix is the one that's going to bring them that.
It'd be interesting to see from West Ham what success looks like, because success, I would suspect, for West Ham looks like 7th in the league and winning a European trophy.
Yeah.
But that wasn't success because it wasn't embraced with the style of football that they wanted. So it's interesting to see what success looks like. I think when West Ham fans come on, they normally turn around and say, we want a good brand of football that we enjoy watching.
Yeah. I wonder if that's what Rob is about to tell us, who's a West Ham fan who has called in. In fact, this is what I mean. A number of West Ham fans giving us a ring just because we've started telling you where West Ham are and what might be the solution to a fairly indifferent end to a season. Rob, good afternoon. What do you want to say?
Good afternoon, guys. Great to speak to you again.
Thanks, Rob.
No, it's not what I think. I think the problem is you get these West Ham fans phoning up disillusioned. All right, I've been a fan since my 5 years of age, and I'm 64 this year, so a long, long time. At the end of the day, I've written off this season. Forget it. It doesn't matter what Potter does. All this business about West Ham should play a certain way, winning is a certain way, and that's what we should first of all concentrate on. I get so cross when they talk about the West Ham way, that there's this illusion that we've always played this fantastic football and won games, and we haven't. We need to give a manager a chance to settle in and get his own players. I think Potter will do a good job after this season when he's got his own men in. There were players that I watched on Saturday that are just so lazy, and I'm going to name Kudos. People go, oh, what a fantastic player. Last season, yes. This season, he's been so lazy. And every West Ham who's worth their salt says the same thing. I want us to win games, and I want us to win with a bit of style, but give Potter a chance. Turning up and saying that I want this manager. And I never said I wanted Moyes out. As I said to you before.
I remember you, Rob. So what does success look like for you, Rob, just before you leave us?
Simon summed it up. 7th in the league, European trophy. Ask Tottenham, ask Arsenal if they'd like a European trophy this year. I'll tell you what, they would. They'd take your hand off for that Europa League.
Rob, great call. So we finish unboxing today, and we make no apology for that. David, who's joined us in studio, claimed the British heavyweight title with a controversial stoppage of Jamie TKV. But the big question is a rematch worthy? What happened? David, Adelaide dropped TKV twice in the 6th round, with the second resulting in referee Ron Kearney calling off the fight. But replays appeared to show Kearney clutching TKV's glove and calling on both fighters to break before Adelaide dropped TKV. Let's get it straight. David in studio. You can hear me without the headphones. You don't need them. Are you prepared to give Jamie TKV a rematch?
Definitely, I think it's the best thing to do. Yeah, I think it just gives clarity on both ends. Like I said it yesterday publicly. I said it after the fight. We'll more than likely meet again. Just do a rematch, and go from there.
Jamie, as you probably know, was on with Simon and myself earlier this morning. And this is what he was driving towards. Have a listen.
Definitely, I feel like it's already right. But credit to David and his team. They have come out and said that they do want a rematch.
Yeah.
But just
up until that point, how was it go? How did you see it? How was it going for you?
I was winning the fight, as everyone else saw. I was winning the fight. I was winning on points, and the game plan was going to plan. That I was doing what I planned to do. So So look, everything was going to plan. The referee was just it was telling me off, and I feel like the referee got it wrong. And you know what? I just trust the board to do the right thing.
So the board, David, will meet tomorrow, and if it is to be the right thing in Jamie's eyes, and now in your eyes, a rematch would be the right move to go.
Definitely a rematch. I don't even think the board needs to order the rematch. I said I'll do it already. So I'll do the rematch happily. We can do it next. It doesn't need to be
before the referee get involved, and it all became a bit of a mess. Was he ahead?
So, like I said, I know Jamie. He talks about his game plan was working. Me and Adam felt like our game plan was working, and in the corner it was to do certain things. We know Jamie's going to start fast in a certain way. Apparently it was like 3-2 on the scorecard. I knew I was going to stop Jamie, I'll be honest with you.
You weren't going to stop him?
I knew I was going to.
Oh, you were going to stop him?
No, I knew I was going to. Like I said, I was going to stop Jamie. The judges will not be needed, but I suppose you look at certain fighters like the Gervonta Davises and whatnot, people that have a low output on purpose. They like to see what's going to happen. They know they're going to get the knockout later on. So I kind of had that approach this fight, and because it wasn't my normal approach, a lot of people said something, but I get told off when I rush, and then when I take my time, I get told off. So I suppose you're going to get told off either way. But in terms of the knockout, I'm grateful I knocked him out. I'm grateful he got up and I actually finished him off, because now it's actually clarification. I stopped him. It's not that he got dropped after first left hook and he never got back up. He got back up, he boxed on, and I stopped him. But if you look at small little things in a fight, you see him doing it to me.
He says differently though. What he said was that the first punch knocked him down, and the second onslaught, you didn't hit him. You didn't hit him clean, and so he went down, and the referee counted him to 8, and then waved him off. So he felt that was not, that he wasn't getting hurt in the second onslaught. The first one obviously knocked him down, was a flash knockdown. He got up and went on with the fight, and obviously you unleashed a barrage on him, but he claims that you didn't hurt him. I was disappointed in the fight, David. I expected more from you, and I expected a better fight. Do you think that the second fight will be a better fight? Because
on my end, yes, but like I said to you, it's hard, Simon. It takes 2 to tango.
Sure.
And if somebody's, clinching, hugging, he's grabbing the back of my head. As soon as I go to let my hands go, he's smothering me. He's doing certain things to hold on. And I suppose it's hard, but on my end, I'm never involved in boring fights. Jamie obviously. Can
I ask you about the referee?
Yeah.
Without wanting for you to bury him, do you get the sense as a fighter in the ring that you've got? Because the big argument is he wasn't strong enough with both of you. Mm-hmm. He wasn't strong enough. TKV hit you when he told broke, and you hit him, and you hit him with a more compelling punch. But the argument would rage that the referee wasn't strong enough. As a fighter, do you get that sense when you're in a ring, you know that a referee's got authority and control over you or not? And did you feel that this one didn't have?
I'll be honest with you, I didn't feel like that. I don't feel like you don't need to be strong as a referee. Wait, do this, do that, you talk, stop boxing, we're going to stop boxing. He never said that. He said, but he kept hitting me.
Right.
So even after he says break, Jamie throws a right hand to the body, and I throw the left hook upstairs. Now, if you look at the fight, when he catches me with the same sort of shots earlier in the fight, my left hand's down, he throws the right hand over the top. Don't complain, I just get on with it.
But did you think the referee wasn't strong enough? Do you know when you're in a fight with a referee that you know what you've got to do? The referee gets in between you, break means break, and I'll get in between you, and that space is taken away from you two guys. Jamie hit you in one instance, you hit him in another. Jamie was also saying this morning that he felt that the referee only told him to do things and not you.
I got told off in the same fight though. No, I got told off, just like Jamie did. So,
but are you going to want a better referee for the second fight?
am I going to want a better one?
Yeah.
I don't mind the referee that's in the second.
You don't have
I
any view
swear
on it?
to
You don't want the same one, do you?
I don't, Jim. That second fight is going to be concluded. It doesn't matter who's the referee, who's judging it, or anything. Honestly,
Well, we'll look forward to that.
that's just how I'm coming. But
It does seem like a night, curiously, that both of you want to put behind you.
I mean, for me, I don't mind. But like I said, I'd give him the rematch right away. It doesn't. I won the British title, and I stopped him. I said I'd stop him, and I did exactly that. I think it's just a way for his team to kind of.
Do you feel any of your thunder's been stolen because you want to push his title?
Yeah, they tainted it a lot. They tainted it, and I know that team well, and they did some things leading up to the fight that I didn't. I mean, it's not that I expect much from them anyways, but they did. They still surprised me. Even though I didn't expect anything from them. Even me being in the corner and getting my hands wrapped in the change room. I was getting my hands wrapped in the change room, and I'm saying to the commission, "Where's their team?" They said, "No, they're not sending nobody because they didn't want no one in your side on wrapping their hands, and they didn't want small things like that. Like, we wrapping our hands, and we don't want Adelaide's team in our corner." And all right, then that's what you want, then so be it. But I mean, since I've been boxing at a certain level, you send someone from your side to their corner, to their change room, and then they send someone to our change room. Of course, we're going to abide by the rules, but you still do it, right? Just to be.
So, as far as you're concerned, irrespective of the British Boxing Board of Control, do the what we perceive to be the right thing, which is order a rematch. You're going to ask Frank to make a rematch,
definitely,
and your job now is to go and deal with it more conclusively.
That's it.
Yeah.
Don't put a full stop on that story.
And we're talking about sooner than later. What, in the next 6 to 8 weeks?
Exactly that. 6 to 8 weeks. Let's quick turnover. Let's just do it, right? He's been in the gym. I've been in the gym. I stay in the gym. I think they were surprised by a lot of things. I was as fit as a fiddle in there. I was fit. They kept saying to me, "David's gonna fatigue. David's gonna this. David's gonna that." Told you I'm a changed man with Adam Booth.
Did he surprise you in any way?
Do you know what? He didn't really surprise me, if I'm gonna be honest. He just done some things that I really knew he was gonna do, and I was just letting him get away with it. That's all it was. And I think because I had a different mindset going in there, I just let him get away with certain things.
Okay.
But when I changed the mindset the second time round, it's going to be a completely.
But he wants a rematch, and you're giving the rematch the green light as well.
110%.
Okay.
Yeah.
David, thanks for coming in to confirm all of that. And when you go again, you can come in and speak to us before you go again.
Yeah, exactly. Just get some security in here. But no, me and him, we're good. We just, you know what it's like. Fighters in fight week, testosterone's high, everyone's tensions are rising and whatnot. It's good for the fans, I think. And I think even though sometimes it might not look the best and whatnot, oh, this is bad, what they doing, it gets people talking. And you know, like
what's good for the fans is a bloody better second fight.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Mr.
That's
Adelaide.
The truth. So we'll sort that out.
That's a telling off from him. David, thank you very much indeed. So David confirming to us there that David Adley and now Jamie TKV both up for going again.